Captain Laurent Voss stared at the primary view screen, his weathered face illuminated by the harsh red emergency lighting that bathed the bridge of the Endurance. The status reports flickered across his neural implant with alarming speed, colony after colony reporting outbreaks of the same mysterious illness. What had started as isolated cases on the frontier world of Proxima Centauri 4 had, within mere weeks, spread across 17 sectors of human space. Casualty projections, Officer Telia, Voss commanded, his voice steady despite the growing knot in his stomach. Telia Corintha's fingers danced across the holographic interface, her ebony skin contrasting sharply with the blue glow of the displays. Current models indicate 36% of the human population will be infected within 22 days, Captain. Mortality rate holding at 62%. The bridge fell silent. Even the ventilation systems seemed to pause as the implication sank in. And the Galactic Council's response? Voss asked, already knowing the answer. Communications Director Rhett Ambrose swiveled in his chair. Quarantine protocols initiated for all human worlds, effective immediately. No ships in or out. There. He hesitated. They're calling it the human plague. Voss's jaw tightened. Humanity had only achieved recognized status within the Galactic Council 3 generations ago, still viewed with suspicion by the elder species who had traveled the stars while humans were still discovering fire. This plague, seemingly targeting only human physiology, couldn't have come at a worse time. Medical teams report the pathogen is unusual, sir, Science Officer Drevin said, his voice unnaturally calm, the hallmark of someone who had switched their emotional inhibitors to maximum. It appears synthetic in origin. The molecular structure contains elements that don't occur naturally. You're suggesting biowarfare, Voss said flatly. I'm suggesting this was engineered, sir. With frightening precision. The captain's neural implant pinged with a priority alert. Another colony had gone dark. Trillium outpost, population 15,000. All communication ceased within hours of the first reported symptoms. What makes this different from other pandemics is the speed, Drevin continued. The incubation period is remarkably short, 6 hours from exposure to symptoms. And the method of transmission is... He paused, searching for the right word. Perfect. Airborne, waterborne, contact transmission, all vectors simultaneously. Lieutenant Commander Orich Riker, the ship's tactical officer and the only non-human crew member aboard, a Veltran with iridescent scales covering half his face, spoke up. Captain, I've been monitoring interspecies communications. Several council members are already proposing more permanent solutions to contain the outbreak. The implication hung in the air like a blade. They wouldn't dare, whispered Telia. Wouldn't they? Voss replied, remembering the Glesian purge from his history classes. An entire civilization eradicated to prevent the spread of a temporal anomaly. The council had called it a regrettable necessity. Outside the view screen, the blue-green jewel of Terra Nova rotated slowly, blissfully unaware that it might be humanity's last stand. The human race, which had endured millennia of hardship on Earth before reaching for the stars, now faced extinction not from war or natural disaster, but from microscopic invaders they couldn't even see. Voss straightened his uniform. Set course for the Arcturus Research Station. If we're going to survive this, we need the best minds humanity has left. As Endurance pulled away from orbit, none of them realized that the real enemy wasn't the plague itself, but the ticking clock, and the growing consensus among the oldest council species that humanity was no longer worth the risk. The Arcturus Research Station hung like a crystalline spider in the shadow of a gas giant, its multifaceted research modules extending outward from a central hub. It was humanity's premier medical research facility, and now, perhaps, their last hope. Dr. Meredith Kai met the Endurance delegation in the primary decontamination chamber, her silver-flecked eyes betraying both exhaustion and determination. At 68 standard years, she was considered young for her position as director of xenopathology, but there was no questioning her brilliance. Your timing is either impeccable or terrible, Captain, she said, foregoing formal greetings. We've just completed the genetic sequencing of the pathogen. Voss, flanked by Drevin and Telia, waited as the decontamination field washed over them in pulses of violet light. And it's not natural, Kai confirmed. But more than that, it's targeted. This plague wasn't designed to eradicate humans. She paused, making sure they understood the gravity of her next words. It was designed to change us. The isolation lab was a sterile white environment where holographic models of the pathogen hovered above examination tables. Magnified 1,000,000 times, the virus resembled a geometric puzzle, interlocking structures that seemed too precise to be biological. The virus rewrites specific genetic sequences, Kai explained, manipulating the hologram to highlight various segments. Initially, it causes massive cellular breakdown, hence the horrific symptoms. But in survivors, something remarkable happens. She gestured to a containment chamber, where a man floated in a translucent healing gel. His skin had an unusual bluish tint, and bio-readings showed alterations to his basic physiology. This is researcher Novak. He contracted the virus 12 days ago. His body temperature now runs at 34.2 degrees Celsius. His lungs have developed auxiliary filtering structures. His cellular regeneration rate has increased by 340%. He's evolving? Telia asked incredulously. In a targeted, specific way, Kai nodded. Every survivor shows the same adaptations. We believe these changes enable resistance to various environmental toxins and radiation types commonly found in deep space. Voss's mind raced. You're suggesting someone engineered this virus to improve humanity? At a devastating cost, Kai grimaced. But yes, the question is, who would do this? And why like this? Officer Riker, who had been silently observing, suddenly stiffened. The ancient directive. All eyes turned to the Veltrin. It's a legend among my people, Riker explained, that the first spacefaring civilization, the ones who seeded the galaxy with the building blocks of life, left behind guardians. Watchers who would intervene if any species became unsuitable for galactic citizenship. Unsuitable how? Voss pressed. By remaining too fragile, Riker said softly. Too vulnerable to the harsh realities of deep space. The legends say they test emerging species through trials of fire. A chill ran through the room as a new realization dawned. This wasn't an attack. It was a test. The council knew, Drevin whispered. That's why they quarantined us so quickly. They recognized the pattern. Dr. Kai's communication device chirped urgently. Her face paled as she read the message. We have a bigger problem. The council has moved up their timetable. They've deployed sterilization vessels to the outer colonies. They're going to eradicate all infected worlds. How long? Voss demanded. 48 hours until they reach the first human settlements. Then they'll work their way inward. In that moment, Captain Voss understood with perfect clarity. Humanity had to survive not just the plague, but those who would use it as an excuse to wipe them from existence. The emergency summit aboard the Arcturus station brought together the remaining human leadership, military commanders, colonial governors, and scientific authorities, all connected via quantum entanglement networks to avoid detection by council monitoring systems. The faces on the holographic displays showed various stages of grief, shock, and determined resolve. We have confirmation, Admiral Torvin announced, his normally commanding voice subdued. Sterilization fleets have been deployed from the Council's military reserve. Their official statement claims this is a containment measure of last resort. Captain Voss stood at the center of the gathered minds, having become the de facto coordinator of humanity's response. Dr. Kai, give them the breakdown of your findings. Dr. Kai's presentation was clinical, but no less shocking. The plague was artificial, designed to trigger accelerated evolution in survivors. The casualty figures scrolled across everyone's displays. 1.8 billion humans dead already, with projections doubling every 3 days. The survivors exhibit remarkable adaptations, she explained. Enhanced radiation resistance, improved oxygen efficiency, accelerated healing, traits that would benefit deep space exploration. So we're being culled and upgraded simultaneously, Governor Esrin of Mars Colony, said bitterly. How thoughtful of our mysterious benefactors. A heated debate erupted about how to respond. Military options were proposed and quickly dismissed. Humanity's fleet was no match for the combined might of the Council races, especially with their populations decimated by disease. Amidst the arguments, researcher Eloin Pax, one of the plague survivors, requested permission to speak. His skin had the characteristic blue tint of those who had fought off the infection. The virus didn't just change our bodies, he said, his voice carrying a new resonance that silenced the room. It changed how we perceive reality. The survivors are experiencing connections, shared cognition. A murmur rippled through the assembly. We're developing a form of limited telepathy among survivors, Pax continued. And we're beginning to detect patterns in subspace that were previously invisible to our instruments. Dr. Kai stepped forward. We've confirmed this phenomenon. The plague is altering neural pathways to process quantum information differently. In simple terms, survivors can intuitively understand principles of physics that our greatest scientists have struggled with for centuries. Voss felt a glimmer of hope ignite. Can these new abilities help us survive the Council's attack? Pax exchanged glances with other survivors in the room before answering. We believe so. We've identified weaknesses in Council shield technologies that we never noticed before. And we've conceptualized a new form of propulsion that could theoretically allow our ships to outmaneuver theirs. Theoretically isn't good enough, Admiral Torvin growled. We need certainties. The only certainty, Voss countered, is that doing nothing means extinction. As the debate continued, Telia Corinth burst into the chamber, her face ashen. Captain, we've intercepted Council communications. They've accelerated their timeline. The sterilization fleet will reach New Terra in 18 hours. The room fell silent. Then we have no choice, Voss said, turning to the survivors. How quickly can you implement these new technologies? Pax's eyes glowed with an inner light. With enough survivors working in tandem, 12 hours. Maybe less. And how many ships can we modify? Perhaps 30 with the resources at hand. Voss turned to the military leaders. 30 ships against a sterilization fleet isn't a battle. It's a suicide mission. Unless, Dr. Kai interjected, we're not trying to win a battle. We're trying to spread the plague to every corner of human space before they can sterilize us. Understanding dawned across the faces in the room. It wasn't about fighting the Council. It was about ensuring enough humans survived the plague to preserve their species. The evolutionary leap is our only advantage, Kai continued. If enough of us transform, we might stand a chance. The plan was desperate, perhaps even monstrous, deliberately spreading a plague that would kill billions to save the species. But faced with complete extinction, ethical calculations shifted into terrible new configurations. We disperse, Voss commanded. Every available ship carrying survivors to different colonies. Maximum spread before the sterilization begins. We need at least 30% of humanity to survive the transformation. As the leadership disbanded to implement the desperate strategy, Voss caught Riker watching him with an unreadable expression. In my culture, the Veltran said quietly, there is a saying, the stars favor those who refuse to die quietly. Voss nodded grimly. Humanity had never been good at dying quietly. The Council sterilization fleet arrived at New Terra with methodical precision, their massive ships entering high orbit in perfect formation. Their weapons, designed to render a planet uninhabitable for millennia, charged with a sinister blue glow against the backdrop of space. But the expected resistance never materialized. No desperate human fleet rose to meet them. No planetary defense systems activated. The Council commanders exchanged confused communications as their sensors swept the colony world below. New Terra was silent, empty, not just evacuated, transformed. The city stood intact but devoid of human life. Where scans should have detected millions of human biosignatures, there was nothing recognizable. Admiral Zalvorn of the Council fleet ordered ground teams to investigate against the protests of his subordinates. The heavily armed and sealed reconnaissance units descended to the surface, their helmet cameras transmitting images back to the fleet. The footage showed abandoned streets, empty buildings, and strange crystalline structures that pulsed with an inner light, growing from what had once been parklands and plazas. Analysis of the structures? Zalvorn demanded. Inconclusive, Admiral, his science officer replied. They appear to be organic synthetic hybrids, but their molecular composition is unlike anything in our database. As one of the ground team approached a particularly large crystal formation, it pulsed suddenly. A voice, or rather, thousands of voices speaking in perfect unison, filled their communication channels. We greet the Council representatives. We apologize for the unexpected reception. Admiral Zalvorn felt a chill run down his exoskeletal spine. Identify yourselves. We were humanity, the voices replied. We have become something else. The plague you sought to contain was not what you believed it to be. It was the next step in our evolution, one that we have now embraced fully. Across human space, the same transformation had occurred. In the 18 hours before the sterilization fleet arrived, the survivors, led by Captain Voss, Dr. Kai, and others who had survived the plague, had triggered a chain reaction. Using their newfound abilities, they had accelerated the plague's evolutionary effects to their ultimate conclusion. Humanity had transcended biological form entirely. The crystal structures housed their collective consciousness, a vast network of minds linked across subspace, immune to the conventional weapons the Council had brought to bear. No longer requiring oxygen, water, or traditional sustenance, they existed in a state between matter and energy. This is impossible, Zalvorn whispered. No species has achieved post-biological evolution without centuries of technological development. We had help, the voice replied, and there was a hint of irony in the harmonic tones. The plague was indeed a test, but not from the ancients as you believed. It was created by a faction within your own council, those who feared humanity's potential. The revelation sent shockwaves through the council fleet. The conspiracy had been exposed. Certain elder races, fearing humanity's rapid advancement and aggressive expansion, had engineered the plague as a controlled extinction event, disguised as a natural disaster. But their plan had backfired spectacularly. We bear you no ill will, the crystalline consciousness continued. We understand fear, but we will not be eradicated. Throughout the galaxy, on every world where humans had lived, similar transformations had occurred. Humanity had not fought the plague. They had embraced it, accelerated it, and transcended through it. In the council chambers, emergency sessions convened as reports flooded in. The human problem had not been solved. It had evolved into something far beyond their control or understanding. Captain Voss, his consciousness now part of the greater whole, but still maintaining his individuality within the collective, felt a profound satisfaction. Humanity had faced extinction countless times on their original homeworld and had always adapted. This time was no different, just more dramatic in its execution. The plague that was meant to be humanity's end had become their salvation. The species that many council races had dismissed as fragile, short-lived, and primitive had transformed into something eternal. As the council fleet retreated, unable to harm the crystalline structures with their weapons, the entity that had once been humanity began reaching out into the cosmos with newfound senses. They detected other tests, other plagues, other species facing their own evolutionary crises across the galaxy. And they made a decision that would forever alter the course of galactic history. They would help these species survive their own trials. After all, if there was one thing humans had always excelled at, it was outlasting the disasters that should have destroyed them. The universe's most devastating plague had hit humanity, and humanity had not merely survived it. They had conquered it, transformed through it, and emerged as something the galaxy had never seen before. Something magnificent, something terrifying, something undeniably human at its core, despite no longer being human at all.